how fast does our nervous system actually respond to these interventions? You do the thing. Let's say that someone's about to go into a meeting and they're feeling nervous and they do some resonance breathing. How quickly does their nervous system actually adapt? Not adapt, how quickly does it respond?
A lot of it depends on how long they've been doing it and how consistently. But let's take it from this person's never heard of resonance breathing. They've never done a single resonance breath. And I know we have to unpack what resonance breathing actually is, but let's just say they've never done it, okay? Their nervous system will begin to respond. So vagal firing, the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, will begin firing almost instantaneously. And so within seconds, they'll start to make these really beautiful oscillations in their heart rate. They may be small initially, but within seconds, it starts to respond. Funny thing enough is that the parasympathetic nervous system, so again, the parachute brings us down, the relaxation response, works much faster than the sympathetic nervous system. So
it'd be surprising given that you think someone fires a gun or a lion comes at you, the sympathetic would turn on very quickly. Yeah. You're saying that the opposite is true, that the parasympathetic is even quicker.
It's even quicker. And it's so it's not to say that the sympathetic nervous system isn't fast. Right. It's really fast. However, the parasympathetic nervous system is much faster because when we think about the vagus nerve, which is our wandering nerve, it innervates basically every part of our body and sends communication up to the medulla in the brain, which is like basically a control system of our central nervous system. It responds immensely quickly. And one of the fastest ways that we can shift that state is just breathing. So for you, within a single breath, you can actually start to enhance that vagal activation, which is a pretty incredible feature that we have as human beings, is to be able to use something as simple as our breath to adapt that quickly.
Well, because you can't go to sleep right now. You said one of the other ways is to work on sleep. I can't sleep right now, but I can breathe right now.
Yeah, you can breathe right now. And the thing is, too, is that you can do it in a controlled environment where nobody's watching you and you can be using a device or an apparatus. Great, you can do it that way. But you can also do it, in an environment where there's plenty of people and no one's really knowing that you're sitting there regulating your nervous system. I've been trying to do it here, since we've been talking. It's just slow the pace of my breathing down. Because as people probably hear, I tend to get quite excited and I can talk fast. So when I slow my breathing down, that can actually increase my overall mental acuity. And then therefore...
Why does it increase mental acuity?
So that probably takes a little bit of time just to explain the science behind this. And you can kind of slap me if we're going a little bit too much.
Keep it simple.
Okay, we'll keep it simple. So our body has a natural blood pressure regulation system in it called the baroreflex response. The baroreflex response is essentially like cruise control for your blood pressure. It's always trying to kind of dial up and dial down whenever it needs to, based on what it's seeing in terms of physiological change. That baroreflex mechanism is what bridges the gap between our autonomic nervous system and our cardiovascular system. So it's kind of that bridge or pathway for communication. When our baroreflex is not working like it should, so let's say we're experiencing some nervous system dysregulation. What happens within the baroreflex mechanism is that it essentially will identify changes in blood pressure, and then immediately it will try to overshoot to course correct, because it basically is like, I'm on high alert. I'm going to send the signal to the nervous system that we need to really course correct. It's like a great example of this is the older cars with cruise control. When they first came out with cruise control, they were really crappy at actually doing what they're supposed to do. So the speed would modulate 5 to 10 miles an hour, and then the engine would just abruptly shift and would overshoot. Now we're going 5 or 10 miles over. Whereas the newer cars, they have better baroreflex gain, because a mile an hour over and it adjusts nicely and smoothly. So you can imagine that when your nervous system is dysregulated and you're having all of these overshootings of blood pressure that are occurring, it causes a lot of different dynamics in terms of how we feel. Increased heart rate, blood rushing kind of to places really quickly. When blood pressure goes up, you may not be able to necessarily feel it if you don't have a high level of interoception or feeling of the body. But if you do, then you can kind of notice how it impacts mental acuity for the most part. So why does it impact mental acuity? is that baroreflex response, when it becomes quite dysregulated, it changes basically like blood flow dynamics and vagal firing dynamics, which can cause that stress response to become quite heightened and almost like unruly and uncontrolled, which basically will start to flood our nervous system to think that there's a threat that's within kind of like distance of us. And so therefore our mind is now trying to pursue all the different ways to kind of fight or flee and get out of there, as opposed to kind of like locking in, getting into this nice deep flow state where blood pressure is really nicely managed in the way that it should be.
So if you think that there's a lion over your shoulder, now is not the time to remember the speech that you're trying to present in 20 minutes. You're not recruiting your mental faculties in order to be able to do that. You're busy worrying about this like imaginary tiger.
Yeah, and the problem though is that the tiger may be all the people in front of you. Am I going to embarrass myself? Am I going to get into a situation where I don't land the deal or I don't say things the way that I'm supposed to? And so now it's all this. It's not a viable threat. It's a perceived threat, but it's having the impact on your physiology and your mental acuity like a viable threat would.